Hello and welcome to day two, the 444 on radio days. The opportunity for us as autistic people to get together and discuss what's going on in our lives and how we feel about our autism. We make a podcast every Sunday called the 444, where a group of people who are used to having their voices recorded and anybody else who drops by but keeps their voice without being on the recording or texting, it's an interesting mix, and we make that into a podcast. But we also have something different, and it's called Backstage. Backstage has no recording in it. There's no cameras, there's text, there's voice if you wish, and we're making those opportunities available to everybody for the 4 hours of radio days every day of the 4 days between Christmas and New Year. So you can drop by Backstage from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. every day. Hi guys, I can see there's plenty of people here. How are people feeling about their Christmas time and Christmas break?
For me, I'm feeling like I'm still getting over the actual Boxing Day and Christmas Day. And I wonder if because I am feeling more myself and sort of autistic, I am taking more time now to get over it without feeling guilty and feeling this overwhelming need to be productive, because it's only the second Christmas and the first sort of full Christmas since my diagnosis. And oddly, I was surprised to be diagnosed.
We have a lot of conversations, Teresa, and I noticed that you break everything down into before diagnosis and after diagnosis. I think I do the same.
I will say though, when I think about my life, like if I go back to all the ages, I do have a lens where knowing that I have always been this way, I can sort of review the movie of my life in a different, more forgiving way, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it really does make sense because it's cutting yourself some slack, isn't it? When you start to get a handle on this autism business, this word that you get handed and then you have to define, you really do start understanding and cutting yourself some slack in the present, and also when you look at things that happened before.
It's a journey, isn't it? I mean, the question comes up, well, what else are we then? What else did we think we were?
I break things down a little bit further. I go from I before identification, then to diagnosis, and then to my additional identification of being ADHD and asexual. So
That's that's an interesting layering of identity, maybe. And I wonder if it helps you bring yourself more into focus.
I realised I was autistic about 20 years before I was actually diagnosed. My father was reading an article in the Sunday newspaper, and all of a sudden it made sense. But I found further sense made when I was talking to someone who was ADHD after I lost my father. And how he described ADHD, it made me realise that not only am I autistic, but I'm ADHD, and I think I'm probably traits are more lenient towards ADHD than they are autism.
Where does the question arise from that you would ask someone or talk to someone with ADHD and, you know, and resonate with you? The question must have already been there. And the question for me, for example, was, so I'm normal, or I think I'm normal, why am I so crap at everything?
I think I was talking about me being autistic, and that's what brought the subject up. And all of a sudden, it made sense. I've actually been deliberately masking since the age of 11 at the suggestion of my father and my sister. Problem being is the fact that I can't mask how I feel makes all the rest of the masking pointless.
Shyness is a good subject to maybe ponder. You know, I was thinking it through the other day because way back when I was a child, you know, first day at school and all that, I was seen as a shy child. But there are other reasons for my behaviour.
I think that shyness thing is possibly the first thing that gets remarked upon when you notice that a kid is likely to be neurodivergent. I have a very lovely young child in my life. A friend of mine has a daughter who is, for us, for all of us, obviously autistic, and diagnosis is something that's going to be sought. It was the shy quietness, the social awkwardness that was the first thing that led me to wonder, I suppose. And the second thing was that when that person had got used to me, the absolute opposite, the complete opposite of shyness, when they felt comfortable with the other person in their lives. So there's a double thing to this.
Yeah, I had that. Um, my shyness was so profound that it would entrap me. I could hear other people talking about, and I think when other people were talking about it, it became more like cement. I could not get out of it. And I don't think I was being defiant with it. Later on, sometimes maybe I stayed in it, but it was like really profound. I don't even know if you should call it shyness then.
I don't think I was ever really shy. I just don't think I was ever in an environment where I felt safe and where I was accepted, because in some environments now I'll be very, very quiet and timid, but other ones I'll be outgoing. I'm not the same in every environment.
And that's what I think made the people talk about it. So there were people I was comfortable with. And then I'd be in a situation where somebody came into the home, or we were somewhere else, or maybe I was tired that day with people I had on occasion been able to speak to, but and then that would make certain people, not everyone, really quite upset, that as though I was doing it. Do you know what I mean?
So Jules says my audio is crackling, so we'll have that confirmed first before I say any more.
You're quiet, but you're not crackling. But I could hear the crackle on Jules's mic, and he's gone out. He's going to come back in again to try and sort that out.
So I'm quiet.
Yeah, pretty quiet. Yeah.
And you were more quiet a moment ago. It was as though when you said, "So I'm quiet," you became a little clearer, as though you either moved closer to a microphone or just raised your voice.
Yeah, that's what I did. I'm currently moving a volume thing. Anyway, what GR said, he mentioned that shyness comes from, a quote GR made from a Morrissey lyric, the band The Smiths. And then put a further quote, which is shyness is nice, but shyness can stop you from doing all the things in life you'd like to. So that shyness can look nice to the other who's observing you. But when you're a child and you're really young and you're being introduced to new situations, the shyness is not an act, it's a miscommunication, it's an inability to communicate at times. It was for me. I'm assuming it may be the same for others. Coyness is another word, isn't it? But anyway, you think you're shy because you're quiet and not communicating. And what Robbie said about when he's in situations where he's comfortable, he's quite he's open. But when you're a child suffering the kind of shyness I had, nothing's comfortable. All these situations are too intense. Now maybe perhaps at home, yeah, in the comfort of home, you could be yourself and express yourself. But there is this hesitation to be yourself and to let it out in social situations.
Yeah, that's a good description.
I almost feel like it's a kind of change of language, really. They said I was a shy child, but I think I would maybe change that to being bewildered in certain situations. So family parties where I knew everybody there and I was there with people who were familiar, I was just as bad as if I was meeting with somebody for the first time and I was little. It was just because if there was just too much to take in, I was very quiet. And so maybe shy is a really cute word, but I don't think it really defines what it's about. Yeah, I had something else to say, but I lost my thread. I'll be back.
I think you're right. So I'd be quiet in certain family settings, but nowhere near as paralyzed as, let's say, uh, going, well, this is a jump ahead in age, but a dance in grade 8 that was during school hours, so you couldn't not go. That was like I was, yeah, in concrete against the wall, and much to the humor of other people, but not any, no, there was no willpower, there was no, you all must know what I mean.
Isn't it when you get to that grade 8 stage, it's kind of more layered by that point. You've had multiple experiences of this um, shyness, and yeah, it's when it arrives the first time. It's almost like you're supposed to learn how to cope with it, and an unwritten rule of school or society is that you will learn to adapt to this and get better at it, and somehow go to the dance and be comfortable and be confident with people, when really in the very early stages, when I reflect back at say family parties, like what Lucy said, and this whole thing of like, give us a song, do something, everybody else is singing, why don't you sing? That's real pressure, and it's I don't like using the word abuse, but it kind of is. You know what I mean? It's like forcing someone to be something they aren't, and yet they see you showing off at certain times and think, well, what happened to that one? Where is he now? So anyway,
Interestingly, though, it was around at the same age as being frozen against the wall at a dance that the way Robbie described to us that you'd really come out, that did happen to me around um the excitement of going to a concert, and I was with just four other people I felt safe with. So I didn't go anywhere without my sister. She was there. And then I was with my best friend, who now I realize was also neurodivergent. She's now a librarian, and her brother, who didn't go anywhere, she didn't go anywhere without. And her father, who was sort of a high school teacher of people with special needs. He was about to take us to, this is kind of crazy, but we were in grade 8, a Kiss concert, our first concert. And we were just eating our dinner before we left. And I suddenly got so excited, I couldn't stop talking. And he had to ask me to stop talking. It was an unusual situation.
but man, it's Kiss.
The common thing between all the environments I'm comfortable with is predictability and me being in control. And the working environments that was comfortable in was the sort of serving behind a bar, working as a waiter, working in a shop, because that got over my difficulty finding conversation, because the job provided the the conversation. It's unpredictable environments, and the sort of environment where I have to find conversation where I struggle.
Yeah, I think that word familiarity's come up quite a bit.
Oh, I would like to go back to the ADHD. I don't have it, but my son did. And this is going to be about all of these things, about any neurodivergent thing. So he was 6, and the school wanted to talk about him. And I didn't, just the way I had no idea I was autistic, I had no idea he had ADHD. Take these things so literally, I think. But anyway, I just thought he was happy, funny little boy. And I didn't know, but I just thought little boys maybe are super lively and you should try to keep them off the middle of the road. And I thought he was perfectly happy and a little boy. So I then became aware that I should really become involved in this and not let other people be in charge of saying who he was. So I got a private assessment, and his sister was 8, and we were there, and the psychologist tester was telling us the results, and I'm listening, and he tells us what ADD is, he tells us what ADHD is, and we're sitting on a couch looking at the man, and my son is behind the couch like a yo-yo. And I said, so which one of those does he have, with or without the H? And my daughter said, Mom, he's behind the couch, jumping up and down. But that was the same with my diagnosis when the woman, the psychologist tester woman, said, "Oh, and we have a group, and you have to be autistic to go to it." And I said, I guess I can't go then.
I've seen something in the text from GR that raises my curiosity. He says, if the conversation's generally not about music and films, I'm quiet. And I think a lot of people can identify with a special interest thing. And I was like that when I was younger. And what's happened in life is I've diversified out from that special interest. So I could still say there are core interests that I'm kind of all about, but it's diversified out into things that are extensions of it. So from music it took me to film. They weren't together when I was young. And particular things like soundtracks and then the study of sound and then perhaps say the philosophy behind a movie or the ideas behind music. And Robbie brings this up every now and then. The playing is what of music is what he's about. The kind of meaning in the music, the lyrics say, are secondary, perhaps. You know, I might be misreading what he said there, but I'm sure that's correct, yeah. But I do think we can diversify out from particular interests. I know it isn't easy, you know, because we like our things.
None of my interests are things I can particularly talk about, even the music. Now I can get around that by when my friend visits by playing the videos on YouTube. But I can't talk for a length about music because I'm not into mainstream music. I can't describe it. I've no interest in music styles. Conversation on any of my interests is quickly gone because how the conversation with music goes sort of which bands and artists do I like. I tell them something like Salah and Factor Javar, uh, and it sort of end the conversation. How many times can you say I crochet square to set, for blanket to send to Armenia? My knowledge of archery is just limited to how to score the rounds. So I don't have a great deal of conversation even on my interests, and I've no interest in following charts or following different sportsmen. The whole thing with all my interest is the doing. I like a lot of the songs is about meaningful lyrics, but that's as far as it goes.
I'm curious about your interest in costume, though, and clothing.
Me too. And I was going to say, when you tell us stories like you did yesterday about the kilt at New Year's, or when you describe how you feel when you're performing music or doing the crocheting, you do really come to life. And now I would like to know who those two musicians are. So I hope you can put them in the chat because I feel like it's the listening and the performing and the doing. I understand what you're saying. It's this thing that transcends words for sure.
A lot of the artists I like is because it's not crap poor team of writing. It's meaningful lyrics, things that mean something to them.
I find that I don't really have very many conversations because I don't have anybody to have conversations with outside of here. So a lot of the time, this isn't a thing of mine at all. I don't have conversations. I'm one of these people who just sits on their own and falls down little rabbit holes of interest. And I'll be interested in one thing today, and interested in another thing tomorrow. Maybe I have ADHD. I've never had that tested, but you know, it's a possibility. But I'm too old now to care. But I will sit and, like this morning, I started listening to different music on YouTube, and I listened to this, and I like a little bit of XTC because that's what got me in there, because Ray had posted something about XTC. And then I moved on to, I think I went to Devo after that, and then I looked at a whole documentary, that Music War. And so my whole day is kind of conversations with myself and going where my head is going. And it really doesn't affect a lot of other people around me. I only live with my husband, and he's out for most of the day working. So that's where I am.
Yeah, self-curation. But haven't you found that social media can sometimes help expand conversation for you? I mean, I know it's virtual and it's not really physical, but your friend Marina Organ has this radio show on Resonance FM, and I tune into it on a Sunday, and when I go online to her page where she announces it, a whole gang are in there having this mad conversation about the music, and it's kind of stimulating.
I was just going to say, I think music is very stimulating, and sometimes for me it can become overstimulating, which might explain that thing about my excitement getting like really uncharacteristic for me before that concert. But I I'm around a lot of musicians, you know, like there are very many musical members of my family. Uh, you know, because I married a musician, and my son is an even better musician who married a musician. You know what I mean? Like I lost a great deal of my hearing, and the first thing my son said was like he was grief stricken that it would affect my ability to hear music. But I secretly w- realized that music can bring out too much emotion in me. And I don't mean when I got excited before the concert. Anytime, just anytime, it can be really quite overwhelming to me.
There's actually a concept, fear of music. You can actually have too much music, and we know about that at Christmas when we're in supermarkets. And I was just putting in the text there that when I spoke about social media and talking about, it's not talking about anything in particular, it's not what you say, it's the shared experience of being together at something. You and I, Therese, have spoken about this, about the mass phenomenon of a TV show that can become almost cultural history, you know, because so many people were involved in taking it in at the same time. It doesn't matter what it's really about, it's like the experience of being there, you know, which I think can reflect on what Robbie's seems to be tuned into, and others, you know, about, yeah, being there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For Robbie, he's experiencing it when he's performing, and he's told us that it's a live audience. He is really part of that I don't know what you call it from that side because I've not performed like that.
I put a few of my favourite artists in the chat, so as you can see, you probably won't recognise many of them.
I took a screenshot and I'm excited to find out about them because you know what? I probably will like them, but I will know more about you.
I can only recognise one or two because Robbie's spoken to me about them before, and I know the Peatbog Fairies because they're kind of from my area, my part of the world. It reminds me, I wanted to ask Robbie if he knew about that new band from the Scottish Highlands called, is it Tidelines?
My whole project now is to try and build the skills to perform songs or tunes from my favourite artists, because that, I think, is the only way I can really connect with people.
There used to be this cliche called playing in the band, and it was a feeling you got when you were like in rapport or in accord with others, doing similar things. I always like that phrase, playing in the band, because there's soloists who can be a wee bit, irritating to the rest of the band members, and there are people who just dig in and play for the song, play for the music.
Yeah, I like that. And it made me think um, about um, in jazz and jazz fusion, there's an allowance for that, but there's an etiquette to that too. Uh, and then I also noticed in that huge eclectic list of Robbie's Bon Jovi, you are you are going to be an interesting musical guide.
It covers just about everything. Lots of different languages, lots of different styles of music. It is a lot for me to learn.
I love anything in another language, especially if I don't know the language.
There's even that thing about playing in the band where some will say to you, you're not even a musician, so you can't even get near the band to play. And I think that reflects a wee bit on a kind of neurodivergent sensibility with relating to the world.
Maybe, maybe you're right. But being around so many musicians, and I think this is true for a few of us, like Lucy, R- um, GR, I think you can get a little closer to understanding. One thing I knew when I realized how musical my son was, because he was one of those ones who scared teachers when he was young, who ended up inspiring teachers to be different or better, like really super musical. Um, I just realized my job was to provide uh, everything: instrument, strings, an account at the music store. Not that I had much money or anything, I was just old enough to. And uh, yeah, just somehow make opportunities for it to work out for him.
I'm just going to tread water back a little bit here and talk about the shared experience thing that we were saying before. I had a really unique one this last week. I was on a YouTube listening party with a lot of other people listening to and watching a gig that I attended probably about 20 years ago. I could see myself in the crowd. It was very, very odd, but it was a very strange thing to see. And the fact is that everybody else in that room had all been to that gig as well, and we were all older, and we'd all moved down the line since then, and we were all chatting between ourselves on this thing, and it was just remarkable. It really felt quite transcending of kind of time, years, my autism, just the way I am, my loneliness sometimes. It was just like a moment of being back in the joy.
I have goosebumps. It like in everywhere, the palms of my hands.
I was exhausted by the time I'd finished that watching party. It was over 2 days, so it was broken down into 2 days, and we had a full gig on one day. It was from a series of gigs, so it was a day, one day, and then the next day. And so I had 2 nights of this, and it finished, and the last bit finished, and the closing credits came, and that I suddenly kind of came down again. It was just like a deflation from being right up high, and then being right back to the low again. But it was strange. It was only because I could see myself there in that moment, and I could see myself in the crowd with all these other people who I knew. And for a moment, it was like having friends again.
Nostalgia can be almost like grief. Yeah, take care.
It would be almost like you became friends with yourself.
Yeah, she was in the me in the crowd who was always in the same place at every gig, at left as you look at the stage, because I used to like to be on that side. Don't know why. It was looking at her. She looked very different to the me I am now, and a lot chubbier. But I could kind of it kind of be back in with her soul. I could hear her in me again, and I could feel the sort of the sticky floors and all the things that made it exciting for me back in the day to go to these things. So yeah, it was like a relearning, a kind of a reintroduction to your own self.
It's odd how we grow and change though, eh? We can be an almost different person after about 7 years, even quicker. I watched a football game on YouTube that I attended in 1975, local derby in my city, and when a goal scored in the last minute, there I am jumping onto the football pitch with all the other young football supporters, and it's not something I do now. It's I would almost fear being in that environment now, but there I was as a sort of 12 or 13-year-old, unparented, bizarre.
I have 2 gigs booked for next year. Um, one in London, and I've got one in Manchester. And I'm already feeling the dread. I'm a bit more avert now because everybody in the crowd that I know will know how I like to do things. So, but I'm still getting the start of the jitters where I'm going, do I really want to go to this? Home's quite nice. My sort of social thing is buzzing already. The little meter that tells me it's probably already a bit too much. Are you going to survive it?
Oh yeah, that big difference between doing something and thinking about doing it. Yeah.
I heard this thing today. Um, uh, I can I can't really reflect it any other way, but how the world seems to have this thing called FOMO. I really didn't know what that was, even when I said fear of missing out. What? But then I saw this interesting thing about the joy of missing out. It's when you're wrestling from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday about you having said yes to going something on Friday. And then the moment you finally cancel, you have this overwhelming joy of missing out.
Yeah, I get that, but then also guilt creeps in.
I have a kind of reverse of that in so much as that I will miss something, um, like things that I could have gone to that I didn't go to, and then I regret it down the line. And I kind of kick myself up the arse a bit and think, it really wouldn't hurt you to make the effort to go.
It's almost like where does all that energy go? All that energy that escalated in anticipation of the event, and then to gain pure relief and save your soul, you cancel. But then you're still absolutely buzzing in that momentum of that was preparing you for it. So it's like all that dissolves on the floor around you, going, wow, what are you going to do with all this energy?
Maybe we all experience it differently because I only have dread that I have said yes. Now, I must mean not important things like you're describing. Um, sorry, but not everybody is describing, but Lucy is obviously wouldn't want to miss, and I wouldn't want to miss something to do with like a child performing or I don't know, a really important milestone event. But generally speaking, and I think everybody's used to me by now canceling. You know, they know I probably am, especially if it's a dinner party and it's too big. I think people who know me tend to just invite me to something where it's a curated small number of people who they know I can manage. So that I do feel joy, no regret.
I only have the fear of missing out things because of my bike breaking down bad weather or me being ill. I don't ever cancel anything unless I'm forced to, because I don't get the opportunity to do much.
Oh, I want to pick up on a thread from Ray and Lucy earlier when the topic was shyness. And then Lucy, somebody used the word coy, which made me think that if you are a person who has experienced shyness, especially noticeable shyness, and then I'm going to say as a girl or a woman, other people can be calling it coy and eventually coquettish, and you might not even mean it that way, which can lead to some trouble because you're so shy.
I'm glad you said that, Teresa. Coquettish, yeah. Because I've just written it in there. It was coming to my mind.
Did you write it before I said it?
I was thinking about it before you said that. I wrote it after you said it.
I think people often thought I was coquettish. And also because, and this is an autistic thing, I looked it up. There are autistic women who will have a very young sounding voice their whole lives. This is a thing my mother could not stand about me because I think she thought I was putting it on. So she was just plain old irritated. And then out in the world, there were people who, I don't know, had a fetish about young voices or something. However, luckily, I never noticed if they were a weirdo and thought that was interesting because I was taking everything literally.
What you say about putting it on is quite triggering for me because there were very often moments in my life where I felt I was acting. It was quite strong at times. Recently it hasn't bothered me so much, but I can still see it at times, that I'm actually putting on an act.
Yeah, maybe that has to do with masking or not masking or just super, super self-consciousness.
Yeah, I used to say the same thing, like I was an actor in my own life.
As if someone's like watching. And it might be you that is watching.
Well, I was thinking that's the feeling I get when I'm watching a really good indie film. It is like that feeling about the character, but then if you identify with the character. But then here's the thing I thought yesterday about Robbie's life. I thought Robbie would be an excellent like your life, the way you describe it so vividly on the motorbike with the performing and everything. If somebody like you'd be a really good independent film character, the film would be marvelous. And some of the rest of you too.
Well, GR's on film, and so are a few others here. There's also that weird thing you get when you've really invested emotionally in a movie. Really, the movie's got you, and when you walk out, it's like you're in it.
It doesn't happen to me for big movies. It only happens to me. I know I feel like I have to make this week sometime make some recommendations so that you know what I'm talking about.
I often think of what we do here, this autistic radio project, a group of misfit, weirdo, circus types, as an independent movie, and I think I always had that narrative to amuse myself right in the back of my head, right when I first spoke to my first outside my family autistic person, Morris, when I contacted him to start something. It feels as though all of us are these unusual, interesting characters that have those different things that you can hook a narrative onto, and the journey itself could easily be created into a feel-good movie. I'm thinking of the one where Welsh miners were being supported by a group of gay guys in the valleys, and the understanding that came out of that. I've forgotten the name at the mine, but it feels like that. Say again, mate.
Is it Brastoff?
No, it's another one, but I'll get it.
It's called Pride.
Pride, did you say, GR? It's just your volume is just slightly loud there.
Yeah, it's called Pride.
Was that from your memory banks, or?
No, keyboard wizardry.
As good a technology as the brain, really.
Now you'll have to write a song, keyboard wizard.
I liked what Jules said there about, like, thinking about as if, that's a great phrase, I love that. As if, acting as if. So thinking as if we were in an independent movie. Yeah, because I learned when I was quite young that very often my creative method involved using a guide vocal or a guide script, so it was like copying. I was always tracing things when I was young at school. I was never a creative artist or pencil drawer, from my own soul or head. I was copying images I saw in the world and patterns. And so that copying thing I later learned in anthropology was just inherent in humans. That's how we survive, is by copying. You learn what works in a given environment and go with it. And some of the best creative people, there's this great quote about art, good artists copy, best artists steal.
Those who can do, those who can't plagiarize. And yeah, I'm due to do one of my annual collaborations with the No Men, and I've got some lyrics already, but maybe I'll write a song called Keyboard Wizard based around Pinball Wizard.
Yeah.
So the first collaboration I did with them, I took I'm Waiting for the Man by the Velvet Underground and changed it to I'm Waiting for the Lollipop Man. So it was I'm waiting for the Lollipop Man, stop children sign in his hand.
I'm glad
See,
you. Sorry.
well, what I was going to say was that takes it beyond those who can't do plagiarize, because I feel like it's like a jumping off point. It's almost like in poetry when you like have a prompt or even found poetry or whatever. You know how sometimes you hear things wrong, or it is just a part of uh priming the pump, maybe.
I love hearing things wrong. It's just brilliant. What was I about to say there? I'm glad GR and Lucy picked up on my link to XTC because I've always been fond of you know, um, my mind's gone blank. I can't think his name, the singer, and has struggled with stage fright and Valium addiction. When you see that performance that I linked up, it's like intense.
I've always been pretty good at searching for things, for looking for me music, my instruments, and my costume. If it, if it, if it's, if I can't find it, it isn't there.
Andy Partridge. That's who it is, Ray.
Thanks. I couldn't get the name Barry Adamson out of my mind. He wouldn't leave.
Maybe that means something. I just wanted to tell everybody I put in the comments an indie film called 1 Week that you might not know about because it was Canadian. I'd say it's almost 10 years old now. I like it. Maybe you'll like it.
Yeah, before we get cut off, grab the links.
I don't see your XTC link, so maybe you could email it to me.
Oh yeah, no, that was just something that GR and Lucy had noticed on Facebook. Because I went on a tangent after that because Todd Rundgren had produced one of their albums, and then I went back into my love for Todd Rundgren, and you know how his favourite drug in the early 70s was Ritalin, which is, was, I think, given to autistic children in the 70s and 80s.
It still is, and it's very good for people who are who are artistic with ADHD, because one of the things about my son was we did not want him to be medicated in real life because it would mess up his art, being a little artist or just being who he is. So he just got Ritalin during the school hours, or like if he had to study for an exam.
It's almost a highly capitalist drug, isn't it? It's all about production. You can pack in lots of work with it and not get tired.
But then it wears off, so you can be yourself. Um, Also, I think that's how we realized I do not have ADHD. The kids always thought I was something. I don't think we knew the word neurodivergent. And they would say, Mom, try some and see what happens. And nothing would happen.
Have you ever heard of a film called Colossal?
Not me.
No, explain, Gia.
It's this woman who works out that when she goes and stands at a specific point in a local park, she actually controls the movements of this giant dinosaur-like creature that's destroying Tokyo. It's an Anne Hathaway. It's an indie film. It's very dark towards the end.
That's tonight's viewing sorted out.
Is it scary? Is it horror? Are we looping back to yesterday?
No, it's quite light at the beginning, but gets it gets into domestic abuse while still having giant Godzilla-like creatures destroying Japan being controlled by people who stand in this point in a park.
So if she's the abused one, maybe it gives her a feeling of control, like of a really big scary thing.
No spoilers.
I love those type of stories.
I haven't seen it,
Control things.
but I wish all the control in the world to her if it's true. And kind of to all of us too.
We're coming to wrapping up time here. Christmas wrapping up time. Wordy wrapping good.
Yeah, it's getting close to the hour now, isn't it? So I'm going to go and have my dinner in a minute, everybody.
Enjoy, Lucy.
Thank you. It's pizza tonight. I'm very excited. I get excited by very small things.
At some point, got to be bothered to cook.
Creature comforts.
Pizza isn't cooking, Robbie.
Thanks, everybody. Just for those people who are listening here for the first time, the 444 group meets up every Sunday to chat in the way that we've been chatting today. A lot of it about autism, some of it just about our lives and our interests. During radio days, we also have the Backstage area. Backstage is available without cameras, text. You can use your voice if you wish. autisticradio.com/backstage. We'll now join the 555 programme with Harry's Spectrum Voices.